It is back, the Brad Field Weather Podcast, underwritten by McAllen Construction. McAllen Construction, from the first dig to the... Did I say that right? Yes,
Yeah,
McAllen Construction. From the first dig, see, it's been a while. From the first dig, let's start all over again.
Sure,
Take two.
Sure.
It's the Brad Field Weather Podcast. The return of the Brad Field Weather Podcast, underwritten by McAllen Construction, from the first dig to the last nail. And remember, McAllen Construction also does snow removal. I am Dan Lovallo. He is meteorologist Brad Field. Brad, it has been a while, but we are back. Welcome back.
Thank you, Dan, and it is great to be with you for another winter season, the snow and cold season of the Brad Field Weather Podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to be back with you.
But can you believe, by the way, that we are entering our sixth season of doing our podcasts, and this is episode number 175.
Oh, my goodness.
How about that?
That's great, Dan.
Yeah.
And, you're the technology guru of the two of us. If it was up to me, we'd be in deep, deep trouble. But, down the line, we were talking about doing a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live or two during the course of the winter season. And Dan, if you could expound upon that, you were talking about YouTube and LinkedIn and getting audience participation.
Yes, we have the technical capabilities now to do LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube all at once, simultaneously, and the audience also has the ability to interact, to send us questions in a chat box so that we can answer those questions. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun during this winter season, Brad.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Dan. The Facebook or the Instagram Live, YouTube, LinkedIn, but also we were talking about maybe going to a live location,
yes,
or two over the course of the winter season. And something always brings me to that Seville Dam. Whenever I go by that, I think, what a beautiful, picturesque place. I feel like I'm in the Alps when I'm there. So yeah, maybe we do one from there.
Yeah.
Maybe we do one at the opening of one of the ski resorts in Connecticut. Something like that. That would be fun.
Let's do it. We could have the audience participate in person, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. We did WAPJ. We did the winter forecast from there one year.
We did.
And that was fantastic. But the other thing I wanted to point out is a hearty thank you again, Dan, to all of our viewers and listeners to the Brad Field Weather Podcast. I have had a little bit of a surgery going on, and we've had a number of people reaching out to me and saying, hey, Brad, are you and Dan going to do the podcast this year? We're really looking forward to the podcast. And I've answered them individually. But the answer is that I had hip replacement surgery. And if anybody is hesitant about getting it done, you have to, in any kind of major surgery, you have to look at the risk and the reward. And I just, no grandchildren yet, Dan, but hopefully there'll be grandchildren down the line. And I didn't want to be this feeble old man who couldn't play ball with his grandson or granddaughter or whatever. So I said to myself and to my wife, I think we're going to get this done. And it's been 5 weeks, and it's going great. I'm going to see the surgeon today right after we're done with this. And but thank you to everybody who's reached out and said, hey, it's getting late here. What happened to Brad and Dan? Where are you? Well, we're back, and hopefully back and better than ever, Dan. I do want to thank my good friends, Christine and Mike McAllen of McAllen Construction. I think they've sponsored us pretty
Yes.
much every year, or at least
Yep.
5 out of the 6,
Yes.
something like that. And Kevin and Stephen Blake over at Action Carpet in Simsbury, they always are saying, like, when we do our storm specific podcast, Dan, when say, we're doing the podcast regularly on Thursday, because that way we can deal with the upcoming weekend and so forth. So we'll be doing the podcast regularly on Thursday. But say a snowstorm is coming Tuesday, all of a sudden Dan and I will pop on Monday at some point and give you the storm specific podcast, just talking about the incoming storm. And Kevin and Stephen Blake from Action Carpet like to sponsor that. So hopefully that'll come to fruition again this winter season. And Dan, today is December 7th.
Right.
For history buffs, it's Pearl Harbor Day.
Yep.
For myself personally, it's a huge day because it's the day I met my wife on a blind date 32 years ago.
Wow.
And in 1991, the place doesn't even exist anymore. We went to a Hartford Whalers game, and then we went to Spencer's in Hartford. It doesn't exist anymore. It used to be a billiards place. So that was, I always told her, for our own purposes, it's a day that will live in infamy. But anyway,
goodness.
So thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everybody who's been looking out for us. And Dan, the winter solstice comes exactly 2 weeks from today on December 21st, Thursday, December 21st. That's the day that I will give the winter forecast. So, with the surgery and everything, I'm a little behind on stuff. So that's why I'm waiting for the astronomical winter to give the winter forecast. So that'll be on Thursday, December 21st.
And that is always the much anticipated winter forecast from you, and it'll be interesting, but can you at least give us a tease of what it might look like?
Well, the tease is this, Dan. We have not had above normal snowfall in Connecticut since the winter of 2017 and 2018. The past 5 have been below average. Now, the past 3 winters have been La Nina-based winters. And we look at the cause and effect. We have La Nina in the Pacific. What kind of winter do we get in Connecticut? Well, for the past 3, below normal snowfall, below normal snowfall, below normal snowfall. We are changing it up this winter. We have a low to moderate El Nino coming in and existing in the tropical waters of the Pacific. So at least we have a fighting chance of it not being the same as the last 3 winters with the below normal. And, we look at other factors. All the factors we look at: the Siberian snowpack, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which you talk about often because you're fascinated by this Greenland block. Well, indications, at least since the last few months, are that Greenland block is alive and well, and it hasn't been in the last few winters. So I'm optimistic that with changes structurally in the atmosphere, that this winter will not be like the last 3. The last 3 have been awful if you like snow.
All right.
Therefore, that's my tease. I think we might have something to look forward to.
Okay, now, we're going to look forward, but we also like to take a look back, and I know you've done some research with our climatology report, so what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Dan, we do the Bradfield Weather Podcast in the cold and snow and ice weather seasons. Typically, we start in November, but we're off to a little bit of a late start this year, and then December, January, February, and March. And then I changed this hat to a Granby Memorial High School hat, and then I go coach baseball. So this is fun though for me, and I joke about it without being morbid. I've said a million times that I will likely make a weather forecast on the morning of the day I pass away, because it has been my hobby since I've been a little kid. Right. So I love doing this, and it's a joy to work with you, Dan. But November was a cold month. You know, you might not think so, but it was a cold month. We averaged 2 degrees below average per day during the month of November. We had a trace of snow on November 1st. The data that I give here on the podcast, Dan, just telling the listeners, is Bradley International. We have to use a data point somewhere. We're not going to use your house in Torrington because it would be skewed so snowy compared to somebody's house in Salem or down in East Lyme or something like that. So we use Bradley International for the data for interior Connecticut, and we use Sikorsky Memorial in Stratford for the data for southern Connecticut. But at Bradley, a trace of snow on November 1st, a trace of snow on November 28th, but that's below average because we usually get at Bradley 1.4 inches of snow during the month of November. It was also a dry month, but we can use some dry months. It was so wet here in the summer. We had 1.83 inches of rain during the month of November, as opposed to what's normal, which is 3.51. Now, the normals on today, Dan, December 7th, 2023, the normal daily high is 43 degrees. The normal nightly low is 27 for an average of 35. Sunrise was at 7:04 this morning. Sunset will be at 4:19 this afternoon. And I did a little research on that, Dan. When we come around to December 21st, the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, we get 6 hours and 4 minutes less of daylight than we do the summer solstice in June. I found that amazing.
I'm amazed by it, too. And I keep track, believe it or not, daily of the sunrise and the sunset on my iPad. The paper that I read, I just take a picture of it and I record it every day. And I'm just amazed, like you said. I think we go from something like 15 hours and 12 minutes of daylight at the height of the summer solstice to something like, 9 hours and 6 minutes during the wintertime.
Yes. And we are coming up, it's because of the way the Earth is tilted on its axis and so forth, why the latest sunrise does not coincide with the earliest sunset. But we're coming up on the earliest sunset. I mean, today it's like 4:19. I think in the next couple of days we have our earliest sunset. Then we start gaining a little time in the afternoon, but we keep losing time in the morning until January 5th or something like that. And then we start gaining minutes back in the morning as well.
That really fascinates me. Like you say, we gain some daylight at the end with the sun starting to set later, but still the morning, I mean, I think the latest sunrise might be like 7:20 or 7:25 in that vicinity.
Right, and I think it's like around January 5th, something like that, the end of the first week of January.
So, well, interesting. Those are always fascinating numbers, and I've got an electric bill to prove that November actually was a colder month than we think it was.
Yes,
it's incredible. So, but weather always impacts sports. Not just the fact that the Patriots don't have a quarterback, not just the fact that a glorious coach is seeing his reputation ruined game by game, but weather, obviously, from what I'm reading, might have an impact on the games this weekend. What have you come up with?
Especially the Jets game. So here we go with the games tonight on Amazon Prime. The New England Patriots try their luck again against the Pittsburgh Steelers with Bailey Zappi at the helm. And the game is at 8:15. It looks like it'll be mostly cloudy with temperatures falling through the 30s. So I do not think it'll be a big impact, the weather, on tonight's game at all. So we'll see what happens. I just feel badly about the whole situation, but I'm a fan and I remain a fan. And I know you're a Giants fan, Dan,
right.
And I know you've been through thin and thin.
Right.
No, that's unfair.
Yeah.
You made the playoffs last year, but there's been a lot of thick with the New England Patriots. If you're talking thick and thin, there's been a lot of thick. So I will give our coach a pass this year. And I got to tell you, Dan, I saw you're the sports guy here, but there was this alarming statistic that goes back to the 1930s, I believe, in professional football, that the Patriots defense has held the other team to 10 or less points the last 3 games and has lost every single one.
Yeah.
That's almost impossible. That's almost impossible to do.
It is impossible. And as you said, I saw the same statistic. The last time a team has held an opposition to 10 points or less in 3 straight games and lost every one of those games was, as you said, back in the 1930s. That is very difficult to do. But, I mean, the Patriots just can't seem to get it across. Well, here's another statistic. That game last week, not that we're turning this into a sports talk show, but that game they lost last week to the Chargers, which I had predicted they would win, they never got the ball in the red zone.
No,
that is
never.
That's impossible. And yet they didn't get the ball in the red zone. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean, Belichick talked about that they were on a long field and they got several first downs, but they just couldn't get close enough to get into scoring range. So I don't know. He still is, I guess, a defensive genius because we arguably have lost our 2 best defenders in young Gonzalez there and Matthew Judon. And we still have an outstanding defense. So when these 2 guys come back next year, I think the defense will be solid. They've got to fix the offense, though. The offense
no question.
Badly broken.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the big news here is that the weather will not impact tonight's game in Pittsburgh, is what you're saying.
No, not at all. But the Jets are playing on Sunday at 1 o'clock at the Meadowlands, and they take on the upstart Texans. And that could be a game, Dan. We will have a storm coming here late in the weekend. We'll talk about that in a minute. That will have heavy rain and will have gusty wind to the point that we could have scattered power outages. So we'll talk about that. But the wind and the rain could start picking up in the Meadowlands during the game on Sunday. So it'll be showery, windy, temperature near 60. So it's going to be a warm day. We'll be on the warm side of that storm, you can tell. And the Packers are playing the Giants again in the Meadowlands on Monday Night Football. I think skies will be clear and a little breezy, but not as windy, and temperatures falling through the 30s. So those are the 3 local games.
Right. Let me throw one other game at you because they're playing Army-Navy at Gillette Stadium on Saturday. What do you think about that?
Should be fine. Saturday looks fine. I think we're going to see temperatures pretty mild, actually. Probably anywhere from, like, say, 46 to 52 on Saturday. And partly sunny skies. So no other impact. Saturday is definitely the pick of the weekend locally.
Okay, great. That's, by the way, our perfect segue into our On the Weather Map segment, which is always a popular segment. What does it look like on the weather map as we put this podcast together on Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th?
Dan, yesterday and today, we've had this stationary front hanging out near southern New England. We have been on the cold side of it with temperatures in the 30s. Remember, I told you that the average high temperature for this date is 43. Well, we're not going to make that today. I think temperatures are going to hold in the 30s all day long. And it's kind of cloudy near the front. At a front, you've got opposing winds. A northerly wind runs into a southerly wind, they hit, and the wind goes up. So the upward motion through the atmosphere causes the parcel of air that's lifting through the atmosphere to cool. And as it cools, it can't hold the water vapor, and that forms clouds and so forth. So that's why we have cloud cover near a frontal system. And so I think we'll have a lot of clouds. And we could see some of those air flurries again, just flurries flitting by, but, not really anything much happening. So a lot of clouds today, a little sun, and all of a sudden it brightens up behind me as I say that. And temperatures in the 30s, Dan, during the day today. Now, for Friday, the stationary front is starting to come north as a warm front. And it's partly sunny here tomorrow and seasonable. So yesterday and today below seasonable. Tomorrow will be seasonable. But then as we head into the weekend, it warms up. On Saturday, the warm front is now up into northern New England. So as you say, the Army-Navy game at Gillette, it looks like it'll be nice. Temperatures reaching the upper 40s, low 50s with at least a partly sunny sky. On Sunday, we're going to have a storm system near Pittsburgh. And by Monday, that storm near Pittsburgh on Sunday moves to the northern tip of Maine by Monday. So it absolutely cuts by to our west. So that means with counterclockwise around the storm, we have a strong southerly flow. The jet stream is screaming up from the tropics. So that means there'll be a lot of precipitable water, it's called. So in other words, it might rain a lot. So I'm looking for probably on average 1 to 2 inches of rain, but in a short period of time, maybe just during Sunday night. And also in the front right quadrant of these storms, when you get the storm screaming up on the jet stream. So in other words, to the right of the storm track, which is where we will be, that's where the wind can be. So we are looking at wind, I would say Sunday night, gusting to 40. You'll hear the windows and screens rattling on Sunday night, especially on the south side of your home. Temperatures are, never mind temperatures, the wind gusting to 40 miles per hour. Temperatures are going to warm. Wow. It might be in the 50s all of Sunday night.
Wow.
And, but down toward the Connecticut shore, you see, when wind rolls over land, Dan, it encounters trees, it encounters buildings and whatever, which breaks up the flow pattern. Whereas the wind comes off like Long Island Sound, it's more of a frictionless surface. So places like Stonington and Groton, I wouldn't be surprised if they gust to 60 on Sunday night.
Wow.
And with that happening, there could be power outages around the state on Sunday night. So just a heads up, I'm not jumping up and down and, shouting it from the rooftops, but don't be shocked if you lose your power for a while. I don't think it'll be devastating or anything like that, but Sunday night into the day on Monday.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then as we head into, stop there. Then as we head into Tuesday, high pressure extends from eastern Canada down into western North Carolina. So Christmas shopping, holiday shopping, prime next week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think are all fine. Temperatures are seasonable. What do I mean by that? Upper 30s to mid 40s. Even as we had you and I meeting next week, Dan, on the podcast, sprawling high pressure should be over Kentucky with the seasonable temperatures continuing here. So bottom lining it, snow lovers, I don't see anything. Aside from maybe a few air flurries today, I don't see anything at all for the next week.
Okay.
So Don't get too excited yet. But as I said, 2 weeks from today, we will give the winter forecast.
In other words, there's plenty of time to tune up the snowblower, but you better tune it up, I'm guessing.
I would guess so. Dan. I mean, it's just like it's like rolling dice. I mean, you're going to get a 2 or a 12. Right. And, if we keep rolling, and 3 years ago we got a 3, and then 2 years ago we got a 3, and then last year we got a 2. One of these times we're going to roll the dice and get a 10 or a 12, right? So, yeah, and we've got a whole different person rolling the dice this year named El Nino.
El Nino, right. Well, on that note then, again, we're putting this together on December 7th. What does our immediate forecast look like?
All right, Dan, for today, Thursday, December 7th, as we head on through the afternoon, a lot of clouds, a little bit of filtered sun, and there may be those air flurries that aren't going to mount up to anything, but they're in the air. Temperatures will be in the 30s. Tonight, it looks like it'll be mostly cloudy, with temperatures again cold, moving down into the 20s. Remember, 27 is the normal low temperature for this time of year. For Friday, it looks like some partial sun, temperatures between 38 and 44. 43 is the average high temperature, so we're seasonable during tomorrow. Saturday, sunshine, then increasing clouds, but a nice day. Temperature between 46 and 52. Sunday, rain. I don't think in the morning. So if you got stuff to do in the morning on Sunday, you should be fine. I think the rain will start up during the afternoon, come pelting down overnight, and be done about daybreak on Monday. Southerlies, 40 up toward Torrington. 60 down toward Groton and Stonington for the wind gusts on Sunday night. So scattered power outages, very heavy rain on the order of 1 to 2 inches of rain. Storm ends daybreak, partial clearing, windy on Monday, temperatures in the 40s. Tuesday and Wednesday of next week look mainly sunny and still seasonable, 38 to 44 each day.
All right. Well, there you have it, my friend. Our first podcast in the books for our 6th season, episode number 175. We're back in the groove.
I love it. I cannot believe we've done 175 of these.
Yes, we have. Yep.
And well, it's fun. You're a distinguished broadcaster, and I'm honored to have you with me.
You're too kind. You're too kind. I'm honored to be with you. You are a distinguished meteorologist and a broadcaster as well.
I love going to my occasional Yard Goats game and seeing you in action there. So we've developed a nice rapport over the years. And I'm. It all started back with you and Brad Davis.
That's right.
On Big D10. No, WDRC AM.
AM. Yep. 1360.
You were not on the FM.
No, and we were on the network too. We were on the Torrington station, the one in Waterbury, the one in Meriden. So we had put together a nice 4-station network. Yeah, that was fun. So we're just keeping on going. You can't put us down, Brad. That's what it comes down to.
All right, Dan. Great talking to you, my friend.
Yep. You too, and to you and Sandy and our podcast audience, have a terrific weekend, and we will be back next Thursday.
All right, right back at you and Susan.
Thank you, Brad. The Bradfield Weather Podcast, underwritten by McAllen Construction. McAllen Construction, from the first dig to the last nail. And remember, McAllen Construction also does snow removal. Thanks for listening, everybody.